Hello everyone, my name is Gary O'Mealy, and in this video we are going to talk about growth hormone and its targets in the body. So we know that growth hormone is one of the 6 hormones that is secreted by the anterior pituitary in response to the variety of different releasing and inhibiting hormones that are secreted by the hypothalamus. So what we know about growth hormone is that its production is induced by growth hormone releasing hormone, which comes from the hypothalamus, and is inhibited by somatostatin, which is sometimes also called growth hormone inhibiting hormone, which also comes from the hypothalamus. So the way this is going to work is very similar to what we see with the other trophic hormones that come from the anterior pituitary. The hypothalamus is going to sense the need for growth hormone, and it will produce its releasing and inhibiting hormones accordingly. So what we're going to see with growth hormone is that there are many cells and many different tissues throughout the body that actually have growth hormone receptors. So what that means is that when growth hormone is produced by the anterior pituitary, this is going to affect many different parts of the body simultaneously. But most of these receptors are possessed by adipose tissue and liver tissue. So as far as what growth hormone is going to accomplish, growth hormone helps to promote childhood growth, as I'm sure you're aware, and also promotes regular cell maintenance into adulthood. And as you may have heard before, or may have even suspected, growth hormone levels tend to decline with age. So growth hormone has a couple of different major effects. There are lots of different things that it does, but we can condense things down into 2 different things. Number 1, it exerts what are called glucose-sparing effects throughout the body. So what this means is that most cells in the body are made to be less reliant on glucose for cellular respiration fuel and more reliant on fatty acids. So we'll explore that here in a little bit. And then also, and this pertains mostly to the liver, we see a lot of IGF-1 production. IGF-1 stands for insulin-like growth factor 1. So growth hormone stimulates the liver to produce these types of IGF hormones, and these circulate throughout the body and help to promote cell proliferation, cell growth, cell cycle effects, and help cells to prepare for new protein synthesis, such as prioritizing the absorption of amino acids so that we will have the building blocks necessary to make those new proteins. So this is a figure from your textbook that illustrates kind of all the different things that growth hormone does, including the regulation of growth hormone release by the anterior pituitary. But if we kind of look at those 2 major effects that we looked at before, growth hormone causes fat breakdown, making it such that fatty acids are more available for cells throughout the body as an energy source for cells that not only are going through a lot of cellular respiration, but are also preparing for entering into the cell cycle. So the interesting thing about this, and I think we may have talked about this a little bit before, a single fatty acid actually provides quite a bit more energy than a single glucose molecule would, as much as 3 times as much ATP. So it ends up being a lot more efficient for kind of providing the energy necessary for fueling anabolic processes like making new proteins or going through the cell cycle. If we look at the IGF-1 effects, which you can see over here, the liver is being induced to release these IGF molecules. IGF-1 circulates throughout the body. It not only amplifies the effects of growth hormone itself, but it also feeds back to the hypothalamus and stimulates the release of somatostatin, which basically acts as the signal telling the hypothalamus, okay, we've got enough growth hormone at this point, we can probably stop making it now. So this is fairly similar to the HPA axes that we looked at before. Okay, so we'll finish off this video by talking about a couple of different growth hormone pathologies. So we've mentioned it before, and we're going to see it again in the future. Every hormone we want to regulate properly so that we don't have too much of it or too little of it. And as such, there are diseases associated with having too much of a hormone and too little of it. So this is no exception for growth hormone. Gigantism you may have heard of before. This is too much growth hormone production during or before childhood. Acromegaly is one you may have heard of before. This is actually too much growth hormone production into adulthood. Andre the Giant, in this picture taken from the set of The Princess Bride, is a prominent example of someone who was afflicted by acromegaly. And then on the other side of the spectrum, you have dwarfism, which is too little production of growth hormone. Okay, here is a list of vocabulary terms you probably ought to be aware of. And for checking your understanding, number 1, what are the general effects of growth hormone? Number 2, how is growth hormone secretion inhibited? And number 3, what are some diseases associated with growth hormone? Fairly easy, I would say. Okay, that's going to do it for this video. If you have any questions, go ahead and drop them in the comments section, and I will see you next time. So long.